Hello, thank you for watching. I am Teacher Daniel, and today we are going to talk about adverbs of frequency. Okay, adverbs of frequency. Um, uh, uh, More accurately, they should be called adverbs of indefinite frequency, which we will talk about a little bit, the difference between definite and indefinite frequency. But let's begin. Okay, so what are adverbs of indefinite frequency? Well, uh, when we talk about adverbs of indefinite frequency, we usually talk about these 6 words, okay? And they are always, okay, always, all right? Usually, often, sometimes, seldom. Another common one that means exactly the same as seldom is rarely. So you can say seldom or rarely. I think seldom is still more common, I think, but they mean pretty much the same thing. So again, seldom and never. Well, let's talk about what these words do, okay? All right, so when you say let's begin with always. When you say you always do something, it is a word that tells people how frequently you do it, right? Well, when you say you always do something, you're saying that you do something 100% of the time. You always do it, okay? There is not one time that you don't do it. Well, as in, I always do my homework. I always do homework. Okay, now, nobody can really say that, right? Nobody can say that you always do homework. That's just not possible. Sometimes you're sick, sometimes you forget, right? So nobody always does homework. So when you say always, it really doesn't mean 100%. It means almost 100%, okay? Not really 100%, but almost 100%, maybe 99%, 95%, okay? That's good enough to count as always. So when you say I always do homework, you mean that you almost always do homework. Not that you really always do homework, but you almost always do homework. Just to just remember that. Okay, nobody can do something always. Okay, let's time out for a second. Okay. The next word that we're going to talk about is the word usually. Okay, usually. Well, what does it mean when you say you usually do something? Well, it means that you do it a lot, not as much as always, but just nearly as much, right? So when you usually do something, you do it perhaps 90 to 80 to 90% of the time. Again, this is not a real number, right? Some people might think that 80%, 70% is usually also. Some people might say that, well, 80% is not usually. It's not often enough to be usually. So usually is about 80 or 90% or 70%. It's around that number. It's less frequent than always, but more frequent than the other words, okay? So usually, so when you usually do something, you still do it a lot. So, as in a sentence, my mother usually wakes up early. Okay, so for example, like if your mother wakes up early on Monday and on Tuesday and on Wednesday and on Thursday and on Friday and on Saturday, but then she sleeps a little bit later on Sunday, well, then she usually wakes up early. That's about, 85%, right? Okay, 80, 90%. So she usually wakes up early. Okay, so my mother usually wakes up early. Okay, now again, there isn't a real number, right? Yes, maybe you think that your mother wakes up early 5 days a week and then sleeps in late 2 days a week. Maybe you think that's also usually. So nobody really knows. Okay, there isn't a real number. So what do you mean when you say your mother usually wakes up early? Well, you're just saying that my mother wakes up early a certain percent of the time, right? Okay, and everybody will be different. Maybe I think it's 80% of the time, right? Maybe you think it's 90% of the time. Maybe you think it's 75% of the time, right? Who knows? Okay, so, but usually does mean you do it a lot, okay? More than a lot, okay? Almost always, right? Okay, usually. Okay, good. Another adverb of frequency that we use, that we often hear, is the word often. Okay, here's the word often. And when you often do something, you also do it quite many times. Okay, but not as often as usually or always. Okay, so perhaps if you do something from 70 to 80% of the time, then you would say you often do that thing. For example, Daniel often exercises. Okay, I perhaps exercise 4 days out of the week, perhaps sometimes even 5. Okay, so Daniel often exercises. Okay, again, there's no real number, right? Perhaps you only exercise 3 days a week, but you still think that's pretty often. So you can say, I often exercise. So everybody has a different idea of what often means. Okay, so Daniel often exercises. What does that mean? Well, it just means that Daniel exercises, well, a certain percentage of the time. What is that percentage? Who knows, right? Maybe it's 70%. Maybe it's 60%. Maybe it's 65%. Who knows? Okay, so Daniel often exercises. All right. Again, these words don't talk about a definite percentage of how frequent you do something. All right, it's just an approximate rough number. Okay. All right. So we have here always, usually, often. And now let's go on to the very neutral word, sometimes. How often do you do something when you do it sometimes? Well, probably about this much, okay? So, I sometimes check out books from the library, okay? Maybe I don't check out books every time I go to the library, but maybe every other time, meaning that if I went today, I checked out a book from the library. And then if I went back tomorrow, I don't do it, right? Yes, so maybe every 2 times I go to the library, I only check out books 1 time. So I sometimes check out books from the library, okay? So about 40 to 70% of the time, or something like that, okay? Again, these numbers are not definite. For example, I check out books from the library, I don't know, 50% of the time, let's say. So I check out books from the library 50% of the time, all right? So I would say I sometimes check out books from the library. And that brings us to the word that is next to the last word, the word seldom. Well, when you seldom do something, you don't do it often at all, right? You don't do it, you still do it, but you don't do it, you only do it a little bit. You don't do it many times over a period of time. So when you seldom do something, perhaps you only do it 20 to 40% of the time, perhaps even 10% of the time. Who knows, right? So here we go. I seldom check out, I seldom make trouble, okay? So I go to school, or, when I'm at home, I'm usually a good boy, so I seldom make trouble. I still make trouble, but I seldom do it, okay? Maybe once a month or once a week or something like that, okay? So when you say I seldom make trouble, what you mean to say is I make trouble perhaps 10% of the time, right? Or 20% of the time, 25% of the time. Ooh, not 225. Okay, who knows? Okay, but it's a low number. All right, and that brings us to the last adverbs of indefinite frequency. The word never. Now, it's very important. When you never do something, that means that you do it 0% of the time. 0%. You never do it, okay? As in, I never tell a lie, okay? I never tell a lie. Now, again, the same problem with always. Nobody never does something, right? Well, that's not true. I've never killed anybody, so that's probably true for most people, hopefully. But in a sentence like I never tell a lie, that's not true. I have told lies, right? So if sometimes lies are important. They are necessary even sometimes, right? So when I say I never tell a lie, I mean I almost never tell a lie, right? I almost never, all right? So it's not really 0%. It's perhaps a very small percentage, right? Maybe 5% or 1%, whatever it is, okay? So I never tell a lie. So when you say you never tell a lie, you mean you almost never tell a lie, not that you truly never tell a lie. All right, so these are the adverbs of frequency, okay? Always, usually, often, sometimes, seldom, or you can say rarely, and never, okay? And these words are a little bit kind of special in English, and we will discuss why right now. Okay, so let's look at these words, okay? Before we do, let's talk about something else, I suppose, okay? Now, words like always, never, sometimes, seldom, often, usually, you can use these words to answer this question. okay, or these questions. For example, somebody asks you, do you often do something? For example, somebody asks you, do you often go to McDonald's? You can use the words, the adverbs of indefinite frequency to answer this question. You can say, yes, I often go to McDonald's. I always go to McDonald's, right? Or you can say, no, I seldom go to McDonald's. Or I never go to McDonald's. You can definitely use these words to answer this question, okay? Another question, another example is, does your mother often walk to the store? Okay, let's say you live near a 7-Eleven and your mother often walks to the store. Then your answer would be yes, my mother often walks to the store. Or no, my mother doesn't often walk to the store. She seldom walks to the store. She always walks to the store, perhaps, right? So you can use these words to answer this question. Do you often, okay? Or does someone often? You can also use the adverbs of indefinite frequency to answer how often do you do something. It isn't the best answer to this question, okay? Using always or usually or seldom or often. It isn't the best answer, but you can. So for example, somebody asks you, how often do you go to the gym, right? And let's say you never go to the gym. You can say, well, I don't do it. I never go to the gym. I just run around the park. Right? I never go to the gym. Or you can say, I always go to the gym, whatever that means. It just means that you probably go every day, right? Okay. Or if somebody asks you, how often does your mother shop? Right? Well, my mother never shops. My mother seldom shops. Okay, my mother often shops. You can use these words to answer this question. Okay, my mother seldom shops. Okay, or my mother often shops. Whatever it is. Okay, a better answer to the question, how often do you do something, is to use words like every day, okay? And these words are definite, adverbs of definite frequency, okay? So these words are better to answer this question. But that is another video. That is another topic that we can talk about in another time, okay? Words such, we use words such as every day, or maybe maybe once a day, right? To answer these questions, it's better to use these words to answer how often do you do something. Maybe twice a week, okay? But that is another video. Perhaps it's 3 times every 2 weeks or something like that, okay? But that is another video. It is not a part of what we're going to talk about today. All right. And then, so this is an introduction of adverbs of frequency. Please watch the next video, in which we will talk about some special details about these words that we have to watch out for. Okay, I'm Daniel. Please like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.